Hi everyone, and welcome to Modernization FX. I am Riccardo, and I'm here today with Tim from Element22 and with Ricardo from BBD. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi there.
Okay, so thank you for joining me today, and thank you for offering to tell us a story. And the story is about basically how your companies met and managed to modernize a product. The product is ESGi from Element22. So maybe, Tim, tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Element22, and then we will start talking about ESGi.
Thanks very much, and thanks for having me here today. In brief, Element22 is a data management and analytics consultancy, and we focus almost exclusively on financial institutions, helping them to modernize their data management, advising them on technical infrastructure, data architecture.
I guess because financial institutions are generally large companies with a long history, a lot of data placed in different places within the company, within the data, persistent storage. So you advise on how to streamline.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's many financial institutions now that have grown by acquisition, and with acquisition normally comes a complex technology stack. You need all of this to be aligned and working to its best efficiency. Obviously, there's a whole governance piece. Sure. We know that data is a precious asset. Data is also, there are sensitivities around privacy and usage of data, and we can help advise on all of those aspects.
Thank you.
And just briefly as to where we came into the whole ESG concept, with a number of our recent engagements, more and more firms have been saying, well, there's a new data set that's come along that we've got to manage and report to regulators and other bodies. And hey, guess what? It was ESG.
All right. And ESG stands for?
Environmental, social, and governance.
Okay, so ESG is basically something that is to do with regulations, right? Regulations from finance.
So ESG covers many components, many elements. We hear more these days about climate control and the damage that we are doing to the planet. ESG in the context of the financial world is about firms capturing metrics and reporting so that we can see what the current state is, and more importantly, how we're improving to prevent some of the damage that's being done at the moment. E is about environment, it's about greenhouse gas. Social is about child labor, slave labor, unsafe working conditions, accidents in the workplace. And then governance is how are firms running themselves? Is there a large CEO pay differential? What are your gender differentials in your workforce, for instance?
Okay, so clear. So I think to basically recap what for me and for us is basically ESG is about reporting some data, because you work in the data world, about financial companies that need to basically surface and prove some parameters in the environmental and social and governance area, right?
Yeah, and it's very much about financial institutions being transparent about where they are investing, either their own money or perhaps the money of their investors as well.
Right. Because, and we are now talking about financial institutions specifically, because they needed to report on this kind of data related to other companies. Am I right? So maybe we can talk about more your product a little bit and maybe the context. So I'm a financial institution. I'm building a fund, I think, right? I'll let you explain.
Sure.
For.
I mean, that's one instance. The whole genesis of the product was a regulation. It's the European Commission's SFDR, which is the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation.
Perfect.
Which means that the product owners have to declare metrics about their products. So from an ESG perspective, a product is the total of all of the metrics of all of their constituent companies in any given product. We help collect and report or return the data back to the product owner, for instance, which they can then roll up and include in their reports to the regulator.
Right.
That's just one aspect of it. That's the SFDR regulation, which impacts firms operating within the EU. From a UK perspective, we now have something called SDR, which is the FCA's version of the same regulation. But it's very much the same thing. It's about collecting and providing trust in the data that's being used, A, for investment decisions, but also for making those regulatory reports.
Right. Okay. To simplify and so I'm clear. So I am basically, for example, a venture capital, right? I have a number of funds, and what I want to do, because of regulations and because I wanted to be transparent, I wanted to collect data related to ESG for the companies that build up my fund, right? So my fund is built of investments into different companies. And therefore, I want to collect this kind of data for every company in my portfolio, which builds up my product, which is the fund. Is this a good example?
It's a great example, and actually it's the second use case that we have used to help us develop the product.
All right.
The first case was the SFDR regulation, and the big nuance is that a lot of the companies that the household name investment companies are invested in are probably index constituents. These are large, well-established corporates that probably have ESG reports in the public domain from which data can be collected and ingested. For the VCs, they historically invest in less mature companies.
Okay.
So these are startups and scale-ups. And it's probably worth introducing another nuance to this. There's an animal called an impact VC. And these are VCs that invest in companies whose entire raison d'etre is to make a positive impact on the economy, on the world as a whole. This has actually introduced another mechanism that we use to collect data or to source the data. Is ESGi has the application or functionality for the VC to actually reach out to their portfolio companies.
Okay, I'm asking you just to hold 1 second and to highlight one thing. So ESGi is the product we are going to talk about today. Okay, is the solution from Element22. And BBD. So that is a modernization solution because I think the mostly from a business perspective is putting, first of all, some order, I think, around how metrics are collected. For example, and you were about to say that, for example, originally this kind of data was sourced outside these companies and maybe from other third-party companies collecting this data on behalf of the funds, for example, or on behalf of the portfolio companies. And also, maybe the data was not actually persisted and kept safely. It was more exchanged in different ways between the different actors. So I think that's the modernization key of this story from a business perspective again. And I will let you now talk about ESGi and its innovation.
Okay, thanks. In a nutshell, ESGi provides a platform for example, the product owners, those companies that are looking to collect data from multiple corporates and process that downstream, be it a regulatory report or going into some kind of rating schema that they might be running. We're agnostic to the use case. What there is a demand for transparent, trusted data, and wherever possible, digitized, because that introduces the operational efficiencies.
Okay.
So how do we get the data into ESGi? There's three main ways. If you, as say a fund manager, you have the data already, you can load it up into the platform. You can identify the gaps in the data, and then you can either ask the ESGi operations to go and collect that data on your behalf, or you can contact, you can reach out to the, as we refer to them, the investee company, the corporates that are making up your fund.
Sure.
That could be a scale-up startup, or it could be a FTSE 100 company.
Okay.
We provide a secure front end that allows the true source of the data to submit their metrics, and that is in digital format. It also provides the mechanism to attach any supporting evidence to underpin the data that's being submitted, and that introduces the whole trust concept of it. So back to our impact VCs.
Yeah.
Because there will be little or none of their data in the public domain, you will use the outreach mechanism to collect their metrics from them. And not only do we collect ESG-related metrics, we've been asked by a couple of clients to say, can we expand the data set to include things like operational and financial metrics, which means that they now have a single mechanism to collect standardized and trusted data.
So basically, you are a financial institution and I am a company. You have an account in ESGi, right? And you add me as well, so I can access the platform as a basically.
We invite you to register.
Yeah, sure. And then I can enter my data, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I am the source, which is underpinning the data itself, and I'm providing proof that the data is what I say it is, right?
That's the idea, yes.
Excellent. A little bit of a step back. How did you meet each other?
So a number of years ago, when ESGi was probably at the conceptual stage, we happened to be on participating in an FCA, a Financial Conduct Authority, technical sprint.
Okay.
Where volunteers to the sprint, I guess, were thrown together fairly randomly. We happened to end up with a colleague of Ricardo's on our particular work stream. And he turned out some pretty spectacular work in a very short period of time. And we kind of thought, well, if the rest of BBD is as good as him,
that's good.
They'd be a great partner.
Excellent. Ricardo, so talk to me about BBD then now.
So BBD is a software engineering firm. We basically provide skills and resources for many types of engineering requirements that institutions may have. This is from software development through to architecture, SDLC processes, management. We specialize in providing teams of mixed skill resources to tackle problems for our clients, whatever those be across the technology landscape. So we help people like Element22 bring basically what we feel is their business product through technology to life, fundamentally, to bring it to. And we will provide every sort of resource we can and expertise across various fields to the game. Obviously, cloud being in AWS is we actively use these solutions and further partners to facilitate building these products for various of our clients across various domains.
Sure. Good. Thank you. And so you met in that context, and I understand that the solution, well, there was some sort of proof of concept which was built at the beginning. So talk to me a little bit about the story. So a little bit of technology now.
No problem.
So how it was originally, and basically the journey to how it was modernized technically in order to get to the current shape.
So we got involved. There was an existing POC that was running. It was a code base running on some traditional VM architecture, not uncommon to what we see in modernization projects. And we got engaged. Obviously, we built a relationship. We believed that we understood what was needed. And then we got stuck in evaluating the current state of the application, along with its architecture, the code base, our application engineers, our cloud engineers, and all of our skill sets. Then determined that, well, this was a great candidate to be modernized into a container-based approach. So we took the code. Obviously, application engineers went about changing what was required, aligned the architecture, and got it ready, obviously, for a targeted deployment on top of AWS. Obviously, AWS providing a lot of the managed service offerings that we would need for a solution like this. Storage, data retention, security across the board. And also we then found, or we identified, Amazon ECS along with Amazon Fargate as the solution for us. The workload in its incarnation was mainly a process workload, so the containerization aspect fitted quite well. We also needed to provide Element22 with a really fast and efficient way to get up and running, and also lower the total cost and ownership going forward, day two operations, right? So there are obviously many solutions to pick, but that was priority among it. So speed, and also when the solution was up and running, we didn't need armies of people to help it, and leveraging all the managed offerings to facilitate those things. So AWS was a good fit.
Okay.
And then we mobilized the team effectively in BBD, again, as mentioned, with all the skill sets we needed, the architects, the application or streamline teams, cloud engineers, network engineers. We laid down the landing zone and designed a landing zone that we believe was quite fit for purpose for the current requirements, but also flexible enough to grow, because obviously we believe in the product and it's going to grow. So we wanted to make it easy to go forward, not over-engineer at the beginning.
Okay.
We designed the landing zone, our cloud engineers put it up, our application engineers then delivered on top of that, on top of the secure landing zone. I iterated with the client to the feature sets to get it to a point where obviously they felt ready that they could release something to their clients, right, and onboard some clients. And we have been helping take care of the application thus far, adding features, continuous improvements, and leveraging all the AWS tool sets to get the best result we can for them.
You mentioned earlier Amazon ECS as an orchestrator.
Yes.
And AWS Fargate as compute. Were there considerations, at the base of this choice, any other option considered, and maybe what made you choose at the end this combination as opposed to maybe the original more traditional VM based?
More traditional VM based. Obviously, we also try to forward think a bit here. So this could be a could grow into a larger architecture, right? Something resembling a distributed system. Scale comes into it, event-driven systems. Containers provide us, obviously, they become relatively a default standard in some areas across process workloads. So provided the ability to deploy these faster, to provide some security aspects, much harder, much easier to manage typically, right? Both from a developer experience point of view and an operational point of view. Obviously, when you start pairing it with the AWS Compute Fargate, the cost of or the operational overhead of running your traditional compute is negated somewhat, right? It's easier to service. It's a container as a service paradigm, which tied really well into our lowering the cost of ownership for Element22. So it was a nice fit. It gave us that barrier of the right fit of abstraction for us to give them exactly what they needed without going too down for no good reason, fundamentally. So it fits quite well in that space. And it also really ties in with the other ecosystem or the broader ecosystem quite easily of tool sets and objects. So we could really move fast by doing that without taking up too much ramp time, which would be laying down traditional VMs, securing them, OS requirements and things like that.
All the management.
All the management, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. So we are today at this point. Anything else that you planned for the future for ESGi?
We have a long and varied roadmap. One of, I like to think, the many examples of forward thinking, to my mind, the product has quite a simplistic structure. We have a data dictionary, which very clearly, uniquely defines every single data attribute that could be collected on the platform today. And then we have a rules engine, and our rules engine determines on how we aggregate the content from those individual corporates for whom we've collected data, and we generate dashboards for client consumption, dashboards that are needed for regulatory reporting.
Right.
We will be driven by regulation, probably, because that's where the demand is. Firms have to comply, therefore, a solution that allows them actually to comply with multiple regulations using the same platform and maybe just a new rules engine to differentiate the way the data is being output. That for us is a great design plus. And from an enhancement perspective, it's either a case of bringing in new data points, and or a new version of rules engine, which we hand over to our colleagues in BBD, and they do their thing, and we have another use case. We have another viable product that we can put out into the market. So I could bore you with a number of regulatory acronyms, but it will be regulation, it will be new marketplaces that will determine our priorities. So we're certainly not standing still, but we have the assurance that we can tell our clients, because if you go to a bank, for instance, the first thing they want to know is what platform your product's running on, and actually having a name like AWS behind us, normally it ticks all the boxes.
Good.
So that's great to have from our perspective.
Excellent. Thank you. And from a technical perspective, anything that BBD is thinking about for improving the product?
So the biggest thing is obviously the continuous improvement. Now that the system's in active use, we can enhance both all the other tool sets of the telemetry, the feedback of the application running, to more efficiently make use of the managed offerings, evolve the architecture to be fit for purpose based on real world scenarios. Obviously, as new products come along and new potential offerings or managed offerings that might suit the landscape, we can start investigating the data products, the business intelligence products, data lake, data marks, data pipelines. Obviously, data being what it is now, the most valuable asset underpinning everything, we will bring what we believe might be of value or facilitate some product offerings to Element22 that we believe will improve them. But in the Heinz, our job is also to evolve the technical solution to remain at its best peak, right? The maintenance and run of it.
Good, perfect. Ricardo, team, thank you very much for staying with us today. And thank you for following our journey of ESGi, BBD, and Element22. And if you want to know more about both BBD and Element22, please click on the link below. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.